Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. That's question number 1 done. I'm Roger. This is the 7 questions in 7 minutes, and because I tend to waffle on, we will have a look at the time and we will try and stick to 20 minutes. The timer doesn't start yet because before I start I have a little thing that I need to say. It's been annoying me for a while, and once I've said it, it won't annoy me anymore. My hobby is bonsai. If you speak to somebody from China or Japan that speaks reasonably good English and hold the word in front of them and ask them to say it, they will say bonsai. It's a short, sharp word, and it's pronounced bonsai, as in bon voyage or bon appetit. It's not bonsai. If it was bonsai, it would have an E in it. It hasn't got an E in it. It's bonsai. Short and sweet. And if you're uncertain, ask Mr. Miyagi. Right, that needed to be said because there are some videos I have trouble watching because it's not being said properly. I mean, my main hobby is orchids, tropical orchids. Well, if I said orchid instead of orchid, I'd get a lot of complaints. Right, so who are you? Roger. And I have too much to say for myself. We've done that bit. Right, my country and my region. I come from the UK and I live in a little village called Burton, which is near Bournemouth, which is on the south coast of the UK. If you look at a map of the UK, along the bottom edge is a little diamond-shaped island. Yeah, that's the Isle of Wight. And I live on the mainland just to the left of that. So that's where I am geographically. Now the next question is difficult for me. What was my first bonsai? Because I just don't remember. When I first decided to do a bit of bonsai, I filled the garden with sticks in pots very, very quickly. And I haven't got a clue which was my first one ever, but they wouldn't have been classed as proper bonsai anyway. You know, they'd have been sticks in pots. Future bonsai, you know, or potential bonsai maybe, but sticks in pots nonetheless. I think the first proper bonsai I bought that I paid a little bit of money for was my hornbeam. We'll go and see it in a minute because I'm obviously in the orchid room at the moment. My trees are outside. I'm not sitting outside talking in the garden. One, the neighbours think I'm nuts anyway. I don't want to emphasise the fact. And two, it's flipping cold out there this morning. So yeah, I think my first proper bonsai was my hornbeam. So we'll take a look at that when we go outside. It's not looking at its best at the moment, but it's doing okay. Right, my favourite bonsai, again we'll do it in the section when we go outside, is my Scots pine. And why it's my favourite is because it's got a good story to it, but we'll do that when we go outside. I don't mind doing a bit of talking outside. My worst bonsai, basically because I can't work out how to make it better yet. My worst bonsai is my twin trunk Zelkova serrata, because I just can't work out what to do with it. Again, we'll go over that. How did I start in bonsai? It's difficult to say exactly, but I'm reasonably certain it was based on a friend I worked with at the time was in the, what are they called? Masons. It's a secret society with all the dodgy handshakes and stuff like that. It's not that secret at all. But nonetheless, he was on a stand at a little trade fair, all in aid of charities. It was all put on to collect money for charities, so it sounded like a good event. It wasn't far away from where I live, so I said I'll come along and support you. And as it happened at the time, my son was down for the weekend, so he came along as well. And the grounds that it was in were alongside quite a large community centre that I didn't even know existed at the time. We went to the trade fair, the building was irrelevant, but there were posters around on the gate as we went in for a bonsai show. And my son picked up on it. He said, have you ever been to a bonsai show, Dad? I said, no, it's not something that's ever interested me. Well, it's on tomorrow, can we come? And so we went to the bonsai show, and I chatted to some people, and that was the Wessex Bonsai Society. I won't say I was impressed, but I wanted more. So I went along to a meeting and eventually joined, and yeah, that. I think that's where my start point was. And then from there you start to learn about what other trees people grow and how they look after them. You find out that some of the members there have dedicated their whole garden to bonsai. There's nothing else there, just staging and bonsai trees and, you know, awnings, keep things out of the sun and that, and they've dedicated their whole garden to it. And one guy had actually turned his bonsai collection into a Japanese garden, and the trees became part of the landscape. That was impressive because it had the water, it had the moss banks, and it had the red bridge and the pergola thing with the flicky up corners. It really done it well. So that's how I started. And the last question before we go outside and look at the trees, what's the most I've paid for a bonsai? Well, recently I paid £120 for a bonsai at the Heathrow show, and it's not even a real bonsai yet, it's still in a flower pot, but it's had some styling done and then been left to grow on the grounds that the long extensions can be air layered next year, and I have plans for those. Yeah, so although it was one tree, it'll probably end up being 3 or 4 altogether, but I paid 120 for that. But in my early days, I went to a nursery called Windybank. Nice little place to visit, some nice trees and a nice guy who runs it. But I wanted a Japanese white pine, and I came away with one. Now I paid £125 for that, but that was in around 2005. So that would probably be worth nearer £200 if I bought it today, I suspect. Maybe even more, because getting the imports in from Japan now is becoming difficult, or more difficult, should we say. It's not impossible, but not as easy as it once was. So that's probably the most I ever paid, and that came in the spring, imported from Japan, was in quarantine for 6 months, so I would have picked it up sort of mid to late summer, something like that, and it didn't even make it through the winter. So the most I've ever paid, and the shortest lived. Right, I'll hook the camera off and we'll go and have a look at the 3 trees, which is my favourite, my worst. What was the other one then? My first ever bonsai. Yeah, my first, my favourite and my worst. I don't want to take the list out. Right, I'll cut the camera off and we'll resume outside. Right, this I believe was my first proper bonsai. You know, it was actually bought as a bonsai tree in a bonsai pot, as opposed to the sticks in pots. This is my European hornbeam. It's got good movement in the trunk. The branch placement is not perfect. First 2 branches are okay, but what this tree needs is more. It needs more tree. It's sparse. And next year I'll be working on that, but this year trying to keep it alive in the heat wave was more important. So my first 3 branches, left, right and back, are okay. After that it's not quite so good because we've got handlebar branches and not a very good apex. But again, what I need is something to come out the top like that to make a new apex and take it up about another 6 inches. And then it'll be more to my liking anyway. So that was that one. And then my favourite is this one, my Scots pine. Really, it's purely because it has a story. You know, it was getting bashed around by the forest trailer every time the trailer went past. It was knocking the tree because it sort of hung out over the track. Basically, it was in the way. And I asked if it was okay if I could take it, and they said help yourself. And the ensuing relationship with the warden there means that I have a place where I can collect some trees now and again. So this is where that came from. It's not a perfect tree by any means. You know, I mean, its first set of branches over here is in fact just one branch that's been split. And over here, this side is basically one branch that's been split. And then the apex I did a bit of work on this year. So that's my favourite tree. It's also my largest. So that's that one. And now my worst tree. You'll probably think why when we look at it, because as a twin trunk it doesn't look bad on at first look, but this is what's wrong with it. The apex in both cases has been really badly done. It's just been chopped, and this one was chopped sideways. So the top of the two trunks is bad. This is ugly to say the least. And the other side's even worse. The only reason you can't see it properly is it's behind the leaves. It could be a good tree. I mean, it's a genuine twin trunk starting from the base. They're not the easiest of trees to work with because they're vigorous and they're capable of pushing out shoots with huge leaves on very, very quickly. You only got to turn your back for a minute and there they go. So yeah, I'd say that was, as it is a bonsai, yes, it's not a stick in a pot, unlike those behind it, but it's not right. So work in progress. And I'm going to add question 8 on. What is your best bonsai? In other words, what bonsai do you think other people would pick? Yeah, and it's going to be this one, my Shoujo maple. Although it's hiding at the moment, it's pretending to be a bush, but it's got a pretty good structure in amongst all these leaves. And in the spring, when the leaves first come out, it's absolutely stunning. Desperately needs a repot, and when it gets repotted, it's going to get set lower. These gaps under here are not ideal. It needs the soil to come up in between these gaps to make it look right. So we'll be setting it lower in the pot. I might even have to get a deeper pot to accommodate it because this is incredibly shallow. But that would be probably classed as my best tree. It's certainly my oldest tree. So that's that. Question 8. So there we go, that's my attempt at this. Probably took more than 7 minutes, I usually do. But there were some bits in between that weren't strictly speaking answering the questions. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. And thanks to Xavier who thought of this and spread the word around. And from my point of view, thanks to all those that have joined in. They've made some interesting videos along the way. It's, yeah, it's quite pleasant to sort of hear a bit about people and, you know, that sort of thing. Well, my little Robin come to say hello. Yeah, so that's my attempt at it. Short and sweet for me, and as I said, my bonsai channel is relatively new. It's not my main hobby. My orchids are my main hobby, and my bonsai trees are around the orchid grow room, and they're going to look an awful lot better when I've got my staging sorted out. And this ramshackle, you know, sitting on the bench, sitting on chairs, sitting on rubbish staging, you know, temporary stuff. It's all higgledy-piggledy and it looks awful at the moment. But once I get my staging sorted out and I can start placing trees nicely, we should make something of the collection then. And there's a lot of new trees that I've acquired this year that we can work on next year. So the channel should get better as time goes on, as the number of trees, which won't increase that much, but maybe increase a little bit. I can't increase the trees too much, it will take up too much of my time. My time is spent in the main looking after my orchids, and you know, I belong to an orchid society, I'm on the committee, I'm treasurer, you know, we have shows to put on. It involves quite a lot of my time, but as far as I'm concerned, it is my main hobby, and the bonsai are second place but different. They're not really second class, if you know what I mean, but second place. It's an outdoor hobby. It means going outside, and for a lot of the time of the year there's nothing to do. You know, in a couple of months' time, once the leaves have fallen off the deciduous trees, there's nothing to do. We're going to get enough rain to keep them watered. You know, there'll be nothing to do for months on end. Whereas, you know, my orchids, there's always something to do every single day. And the work that I put in leads to things like this. You know, I get to share a room with tropical plants that produce blooms like this. So, as I've said, that's my main hobby, and yeah, always will be. Something some people might recognise is the slipper orchids. Anyway, that's it from me. Hope you've enjoyed it, and if you haven't subscribed, it would be nice if you did so. You've always got to get a plug in. Got to have that, whether you like it or not. So if you're not subscribed, it would be nice if you did so. I am trying to grow this channel, and you know, every little helps, as they say. And thanks for your support so far. Thanks for watching. Yeah, good stuff. See you next time.